5 manga all about revenge? Let's go. The first manga I have for you guys is going to be Maria no Danzai, which roughly translates to Maria's Judgment or Maria's Condemnation. And if you're into intense stories about justice, vengeance, and a mother's unbreakable love for her child, this one's for you. But a little bit of a warning, it's very brutal and very gory. Think of like Saw, but tamed down a little bit in manga format. But the story starts off with what seems to be a happy family. You have the mother, Maria, you have her husband, Taichiro, who is a police detective, and their middle school son, Kiritaka. And on the surface, everything seems perfect, but beneath that, Kiritaka's living a nightmare. He's being relentlessly bullied at school by a group of cruel kids, led by a guy named Nozomu Okaya. And when I say bullied, I mean it's like next level horrific physical torment. Like when you're reading it, you'd be like, there's no way this actually would happen in real life. Like no one is that degenerate. But then you look at some like of past crimes in Japan, and you're like, yeah, okay, people can totally do this. Not only do you have physical abuse, you also have psychological abuse and the works. But Kiritaka keeps it all hidden from his parents because he doesn't want his mom to worry about him. But one night things take a devastating turn when this crew blackmails Kiritaka with a fake edited video of his mom in a very compromising situation. They tell him to jump off a cliff or they'll post it online, telling him that he won't die but he'll probably break a lot of his bones. And terrified and desperate, Kiritaka obeys them, only for his mother to arrive soon after he hit the ground, only see him seconds later to be run over by a truck, killing him right there in front of her. And it's a very gut-wrenching scene that really does set the tone for everything that's to come. Shortly after Kiritaka's death, the police investigation goes completely sideways. Evidence is fabricated to suggest that he had committed suicide because of abusive parents, painting his mom and his dad as the bad guys. Soon after, Maria's world collapses until she finds Kiritaka's diary and a flash drive. In it, he's documented every awful thing that the bullies did to him, naming names and naming events. And this is the moment that she officially snaps. She's done with the tears, she's done with waiting for justice, she decides to take matters into her own hands. She soon after leaves her husband, gets plastic surgery to completely change her appearance, and reinvents herself as Maria Akiboshi, her new identity, where she enrolls to become the school nurse at the very school where her son's killers are also enrolled. And this isn't the start of just regular revenge. It's a calculated, cold-blooded mission to dismantle the lives of every single bully who took her son from her. And as Maria blends into the school playing the part of a kind, caring nurse, while secretly gathering intel on her targets. Maria's plan is very meticulous. She doesn't just want them dead, she wants them to suffer the same pain that they had inflicted on her son. And each bully has their own twisted personality, and Maria tailors her vengeance to fit their crimes. And one by one, she slowly picks them off. And I don't want to spoil too much for you, but other things happen. It's not just her getting her revenge the entire time. Things go awry, and she has to make stuff up and improvise right at that moment. So if you like revenge, you like gore, and you like MILFs, who doesn't? And you really want to see people get what they have coming to them, this is actually a really good read. I didn't think I'd get sucked into it as much as I did, but the overall story just isn't as simple as it makes it out to be. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on in the background that you slowly start to learn as the story progresses. So if you like gory revenge stories, then definitely check this one out. The next manga I have for you is going to be Ubel Blatt, one of my all-time favorite mangas. If you love revenge stories and you liked Berserk, you will definitely love this one, trust me. The story kicks off with a flashback to 20 years before the main events. The Empire is under threat from a nation of dark magic and terrifying war machines. To stop them, the Empire sends out 14 young warriors, each armed with a holy lance, on a suicide mission into the enemy territory. These guys are called the 14 Lances, and among them is a prodigy named Ashrit, a swordsman so skilled he's earned the title of Blade Master. But here's where things get a little messy. 3 of the Lances die on the journey, and 7 others get cold feet, abandoning their mission halfway through. That leaves just 4, Ashrit and his loyal comrades, to press on. Against all odds, they succeed, defeating and sealing the threat. And you would think that would mean victory, right? Well, no. On their way back, the 7 comrades who bailed ambushed the 4 heroes, killing them all to steal the glory. While these 7 traitors are now hailed as the 7 heroes, and the truth of what really happened got buried. Fast forward 20 years, and we meet our protagonist, a mysterious elfin-looking kid named Kainzel. He's got long blonde hair, a scar over his left eye, and a massive black sword that cuts through his enemies like butter. Rumors swirl around this guy. Whenever he draws his blade, bodies hit the floor. But here's the kicker. Kainzel isn't just some random wanderer. He's Ashrit, somehow back from the dead, reborn into this youthful body. after being betrayed and murdered by the 7 heroes. For 2 decades, he's been biding his time, training in secret, and now he's on a one-man mission to hunt down every last one of those traitors and make them pay. And the 7 heroes aren't just some random bad guys. They've spent the past 20 years building power, becoming untouchable lords and generals. Everyone believes their lie, so Cainzel isn't just fighting them, he's fighting an entire system that worships them. And along his mission, he picks up a ragtag crew of allies who start to see the truth behind his quest. But it's not all smooth sailing. The 7 have their own armies, elite warriors, and even ties to lingering dark forces. And Cainzel is by no means as powerful as he was before his death. I know recently an anime came out, and I've watched a little bit of it, and it's pretty good, but it's definitely by no means as good as the manga. The manga is very dark. There's gore, there's betrayal, and there's a fair bit of sexual content. But the thing that I really love about this manga is, number 1, the art style I think is amazing. 2, the characters are all really well written. Like, each new character they introduce doesn't seem like some throwaway person, like they have a much bigger role. And also, the pacing starts off really strong, like you kinda just jump right into it and there's no build up, like you learn along the way. The only complaint that I would have about this is the ending seems a bit rushed and a little bit messy, but in my opinion it was still a pretty decent ending. So if you want to see a medieval revenge story with some boobies along the way, this is definitely a manga for you. Trust me, it's one of my all-time favorites. The next manga I have for you guys is going to be Cross of the 6 People, and it's actually going to be very similar to Maria's Judgment, but instead of the mother getting the revenge, it's going to be the son. The story kicks off with our main character, Shun Uruma, a 6th grader who's living a nightmare. Labeled Experiment A by 5 of his classmates, Shun is tortured relentlessly, again with the physical abuse and psychological torment. These kids that are doing it are straight up monsters. And why are they doing it? They just want to see how much Shun can take before he breaks. His only solace in his life is his loving family, his parents and his little brother. But then one day, the bullies cross the line. They kill his parents in a staged accident, yeah, you heard me right, and leave his little brother in a coma. That's the breaking point. Shun's entire world collapses and a dark seed of vengeance slowly takes root. Devastated by everything that has happened, Shun turns to the only person left, his grandfather. A hardened World War II veteran who was part of a secret unit. Shun begs him for help, not to heal, but to become a weapon. And his grandpa agrees. And for 4 years, Shun trains in combat, survival, and some seriously messed up tactics. By the time he's 16, he's not the same kid anymore. He's a cold, calculated hunter, ready to make his bullies pay. After his 4 years of training, Shun re-enters the picture, and oh boy does he deliver. This manga does not mess around. Shun starts picking off his tormentors one by one, and it's brutal. Very similar to Maria's Judgment, he comes up with some very creative torture scenes. Each bully gets their own personalized dose of retribution, reflecting the pain that they caused him. But here's where things get interesting. The ringleader of the bullies isn't just some schoolyard punk anymore. He's a full-on psychopath who's built a cult called the Revolution Club. Turns out, he orchestrated Shun's family's death with chilling precision, and he's still obsessed with breaking Shun. And this guy is a genius. Top grades, medical school dreams, but he's pure evil. And the clash between Shun and him become the heart of the story, a cat-and-mouse game of wits and violence. So if you really enjoyed Maria's Judgment, then you're probably going to really enjoy this one. The main character's a badass, but so is his enemy. So if you like revenge stories, you're gonna love this one, but do beware, there's a lot of gore, violence, and trauma, then this is definitely something you're gonna wanna look into. Next up is going to be Memesis, and this one is very different than the ones we've talked about so far. This one is actually a comedy. It's a story about revenge, bromance, and proving yourself, all wrapped up into a parody on the whole revenge trope. Imagine a parody of Ubel Blatt, and this would be it. The story takes place in your classical fantasy setup, a world crawling with monsters and demons, where brave heroes band together to save the day. Our trio of heroes is Leon, Kajira, and Ash, who have been slaying beasts side by side for 3 years. When one day, Leon, the so-called hero, decides to ditch his team for cute girls. Yep, you heard that right. He trades his monster-slaying glory for a harem of fangirls, leaving Kajira and Ash high and dry. And oh boy, were they not happy about it. So what would you do when your best buddy betrays you for some floozies? If you're Kajira and Ash, you get mad and then you get even. Fueled by spite, jealousy, and a whole lot of pent-up rage, the duo swears to outshine Leon in every possible way. Their mission? To slay the Demon Lord and his armies before Leon can, all while proving they're better at both monster hunting and charming the ladies. This is a revenge plot with a twist. This isn't about brooding in the shadows, it's about flexing harder than ever before. The manga follows their journey as they train like maniacs, battle increasingly ridiculous foes, and stumble into some pretty absurd situations. Along the way, they pick up allies, face off against demon generals, and keep their eye on their objective, to make Leon eat his words. And like I said, the manga is kind of just one big parody of the whole revenge trope, and honestly, they do a really good job of it. My only downside about this manga is it's very short. There's only like 40 something chapters, so you could probably knock this out in a day or two. But it is a very good manga. Instead of trying to kill their enemies that they want revenge on, their whole goal is just to flex on them and say, hey, we're better than you. And, you know, after everything I've read so far, this is a much needed change of pace. The last revenge manga I have for you guys today is going to be one of my all-time favorite mangas, the One Within the Villianess. If you like isekai and you like revenge, and you don't really want too much gore, this is one for you. This just isn't your standard isekai. Imagine this, a kind-hearted girl reincarnates into the villainess, only for the real villainess to eventually wake up and take the reins for a revenge plot. So it's kind of like a double isekai in a weird way. But the One Within the Villianess starts in a classic otome game. Think frilly dresses, dashing princes, and a heroine destined to win everyone's hearts. Our story picks up with Emi, a regular girl who loves otome games, waking up as Ramilia, the villainess of the Star Maiden and the Knight of Salvation. Emi's not here to cause chaos though. She's sweet, generous, and determined to rewrite Ramilia's doomed fate. For years, she plays the part perfectly, charming everyone from nobles to servants, dodging the quote-unquote bad ending where Ramilia gets condemned and exiled. But here's the twist. The real Ramilia, she's been awake inside her own body the whole time, watching Emi like a silent backseat driver. And when things start to go south for Emi, Ramilia decides that she's done sitting and watching. But up until that point, Emi was doing great, until the actual game's heroine shows up. The Maiden of the Stars is not your standard pure-hearted maiden. She's manipulative, ruthless, and has a knack for turning people against Ramilia with lies and shady tricks. And despite everything that Emi goes through, the actual main character of the game orchestrates a brutal takedown. Ramilia is accused of crimes she didn't do, her reputation's trashed, and she's banished from the kingdom. It's a gut punch, and Emi's crushed, and in that moment of despair, she shuts down. That's when the real Ramilia takes over. And the real Ramilia is not about to let this slide. She's been watching this chick ruin everything that Emi has built, and now she wants revenge. Armed with Emi's memories and her own cunning, Ramilia sets out to clear Emi's name and destroy everyone who crossed them. But here's the other twist. The Star Maiden, the evil one, the actual hero of the game, was also isekai'd into this world, and she's not too happy with sharing everything that she thinks she rightfully deserves. So if you still want a revenge story, but one that's not as gory as some of the other ones, and one that's just not a complete parody, this is the revenge story for you. Ramilia is cold, calculated, and determined, and that's what I love about her. And the art style for this manga is amazing. Huge fan. The only complaints that I would really have is some of the side characters are just side characters. There's really not much to them, and I wish we got to dive a little bit more into them because it kind of just seems like they're there. But if you like female main characters who don't mess around and take shit from nobody, and want to see some pretty decent world building, this will be a good manga for you to read. It updates like once a month maybe, so you are going to be waiting a little bit for the next chapter, but in my opinion, totally worth it. So that is going to be my 5 revenge manga recommendations. If you guys end up reading them, please let me know down below in the comments which one's your favorite. Or if you've already read them, let me know what you guys think about each one of these. These were in no particular order, so I'm not trying to say like one's better than the other. You should definitely check out each manga if it fits what you're looking for. That's going to be all I got for you guys today. Later.